Association. Welcome to the webinar. There are a couple of things that I would like to, like clarify slash confirm with you guys before we get started on this. Um, Wait, Royce, I think your presentation is in the, you know, um, presenter's view. Not all right. This is better. Yeah. So all right, so point number one is we're recording this webinar. We won't be releasing it to the public. We'll just share it among the MEXT scholars and the attendees. And I think you've already clicked I agree when you signed up for the webinar. That's one. And two, this webinar will be, it's more of a info session rather than, hard and fast rules or, gospel that Royce is going to give you. So this is Royce's advice. Please do note that everything won't happen exactly as he said, or there might be exceptions to whatever to all the rules that Royce might tell you in this webinar. All right, Royce, are you okay with this?
Yes, definitely.
Got it. And point number three is well, it's a weekend. It's a Saturday morning. You guys are here, so you've already taken step one towards building your career. And just a second, I'm getting like another call from Austin. All right, so that was Austin. He just called and said wished all of us good luck. Um, well, thanks, Austin. All right. So, well, everyone, it's 11 a.m. We got started. We have Royce here. He has been working with McKinsey, and prior to that, he worked with Mitsubishi Shoji, and before that, he went to Todai, and he was here on the MEX scholarship. He did his undergrad, learned Japanese, and he's had a fantastic career journey. Let's hear from Royce. Royce, I would like to like hand it over to you. If you could get started off with your self introduction, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks, Karthik. Hi, everyone. This is Royce. As Karthik has kindly introduced, I've worked at a couple of companies in the past few years. And today I really would like to share some of my reflections on how you can build your career, whether in Japan or abroad. So I do understand that many of the participants are current students, and you probably are looking for your first job. But the perspective I would like to share with you today is that the first job is really just the first step in a long voyage of your career. And so I think getting some net problems. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and let me resume share. I think something went wrong there. Okay. Okay, apologies for the technical issues. So as I was saying, I think many of you would first be concerned about getting the first job, and definitely that is a very valid concern. But the perspective I would like to bring to you today is that the first job is just the first step, and it would be good to choose your first job also with the added perspective of the implications that it could bring to your career in future. So just starting off, first I'll talk about today's agenda very briefly, and then I'll give a quick introduction to myself before we jump into the contents. So I'll be covering 4 points today. First, what is career planning and why is it important? Second, what industries are out there and what are the implications to my career? Third, what functions are out there and again, what are the implications to my career? And lastly, kind of as a short summary, how should I create a career plan? So these are the 4 questions that you should have in mind when you listen to my presentation. I will try to finish these 4 points in about 30 minutes. and I'll leave the last 30 minutes for questions and answers. So if you have any questions, please hold them in as much as possible to the later half of today's program. I would also like to state that today's focus is on non-STEM business careers in medium to large companies. So STEM, I assume you may be familiar with this. It's science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So if you're really interested in being like a programmer, or you want to be a hardcore engineer in, let's say, robotics for factories, if you're very clear about that already, I'm not sure how much added perspective I can provide you, because my background is in non-STEM business. However, if you want to also find out about that part of the economy, yeah, you're definitely welcome to listen and stay.
So Roy, can I just add one quick point?
Sure.
So everyone, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function. You can chat, or you can just put your questions over there, but we'll be answering them towards the end of the webinar. All right. And free to use the chat function to talk and see and like express your concerns or express your opinions. All right. That's it.
Okay. Great. So I'll just give you a quick introduction to my background, and then we can go on to the content after that. So just 4 points. As Karthik mentioned, I first came to Japan on the Monkasho scholarship, the MEXT scholarship, in 2011. This was the year of the earthquake in Japan, in Tohoku. And then after that, I went into the University of Tokyo. I did my bachelor's in economics. And there I specialized in econometrics, which is a kind of statistics area of study, as well as development economics. So with this, I went to developing countries to do field surveys and stuff like that. And then outside of school, I also participated in jazz clubs, as well as community organization. And I worked also part-time as a waiter. So these outside school activities actually really helped my Japanese improve. And then after that, I went on to Mitsubishi Corporation, which is one of the largest trading companies in Japan. There I did portfolio investment management, as well as budget planning and tracking. At the same time, yeah, I am currently a non-active member of MSA, but I was one of the co-founders at the point in time, along with Karthik and Austin. And after that, I joined McKinsey & Company, which is the largest management consulting firm. And over there, what I do basically is I support business leaders in identifying as well as solving business problems. So this sounds kind of fluffy, but it will take some more time to explain. If you're interested, you can ask me during the Q&A session.
I can assure you that back in 2019 when I was looking for a job, I was always consulting with Royce and Austin and two other senpais, and Royce really did give me like a lot of valuable advice. I'm personally vouching for it. I'm not like or anything.
Yeah, no, thanks for that comment, Karthik. Yeah, I think it helps my credibility. If not, I'm just a weird guy in a mask. So so this is my background. I've worked at big companies, two big companies so far, and even within consulting, I've mostly worked with big companies, medium companies sometimes. And so this is the sort of perspective I can bring. You also would want to speak to people who are more familiar with the venture side, so that you can get a more well-rounded understanding of how to build a career. Okay, so that's my background. Okay, on to the first topic. What is career planning and why is it important? Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to give you 3 realities to building your career. So the first reality I would like to share with you, and this is in the form of a quiz, right? I'm going to ask you this question. What do you think is the average number of jobs you will hold in your lifetime?
So we'll be launching a poll. Please do answer the question in the poll. All right, let's go. 3, 2, 1, start.
Yep. So just to clarify, one job. So a second position at the same company means a second job. Just want to clarify that. So if you get promoted within your company, that's a second job. Okay, let's let it go for about 5 seconds more.
Yeah. And we have like 35
Yep.
people. And
Okay, cool.
wait, I'm gonna have 5 more seconds just in case. All right. So five,
Sure.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Thank you for answering the poll. So it seems like most people think the number of jobs you will hold in your lifetime is below 10. So we have about 30% who voted below 5 and 40% who voted about 5 to 9. Okay, that's interesting. Assuming that you have a 40-year career, that would probably mean that you would change jobs once every 5 to 10 years, based on these numbers, right? That's probably what you're thinking. And okay, I will share with you the historical facts around this. The number is 12. So assuming you have a 40-year career, that would be changing a job about every 3 to 4 years. And yeah, compared to the 5 to 9, that's a bit, it's changing your job a bit more often than what you may think it is. So what this means is that there's a plus side to it and there's a minus side to it, right? The plus side is that you would have to look for a job 12 times. So you're currently looking for your first job, you're going to do that 11 more times. So that would be, I guess, the minus. The plus would be that you actually have 12 chances to improve your salary as well as improve your seniority. By seniority, I mean like your position within an organization. Are you manager, are you director, etc. So you do have 12 chances to do that. It's not a very large number, but it's not a small number, right? So you want to make use of that number. Well, okay, the next reality I want to share with you. I presume a lot of you know the company General Electric. So General Electric is a huge American conglomerate. It makes a lot of things. Recently, it's been focusing on airplane engines and stuff like that, as well as power plants. So about 40, 50 years ago in America, General Electric was known as a company which would never fall apart. The moment you get into General Electric, you're there for life. It's a bit like the Shushin Koyo lifelong employment system that is a bit common here in Japan still. Essentially, General Electric had that position within the minds of the American employee. However, fast forwarding to the present, we've seen General Electric change its business focus quite a few times in the last 20 years, especially once Welsh came in as CEO. So in the last 20 years, he started a whole new business in asset finance. And then 10 years later, they sold it off. So you can imagine there's a lot of, in terms of employment, as an employee, there are a lot of changes even within a company that you would have to adapt to. And in many of these cases, a lot of employees were not able to adapt. So you see these articles like how GE is cutting like about 20% of their workforce. So 20% here in GE Power, 20% here in aviation. These are huge numbers. And so what I'm trying to say here is that lifetime employment is a myth that is falling apart. And it's definitely important to understand how you can move from company to company at the same time maintaining your salary and your seniority. Last reality I want to share with you is that changing tracks halfway is difficult. So let's say you start your first job as a salesperson selling printers, office printers. And after 5 years, you realize that, hey, there's no future in office printers. Everyone's going electric, digital. And then you say, okay, I want to go into accounting because accounting seems like it has a stable career path plus a decent salary. I want to go into accounting. Also, I would like to go into, I don't know, a tech company because tech company is where all the money is. And well, you can try to get a job like that, but chances are with your experience of 5 years in selling office printers, it will be very difficult for you to make that jump. Because people would rather hire someone who has experience in either a tech company or accounting. you don't have either, and they're not going to hire you. Even if they do hire you, you have to be prepared to start as an entry role. So you'll be similar to someone who just got out of university. You'll be paid the same. The way your career is going to progress is going to be the same. Yeah. So yeah, so the point is changing tracks halfway is difficult. So we have these three realities, right? You can change your jobs 12 times, around 12 times. Obviously, if you want to change more, you can. Number two, lifetime employment is not going to work. And number three, changing tracks halfway is difficult. So what does this mean for us as people who are employees? I mean, if you want to be an employer, sure, maybe sometime after, but I think most of us start off as employees first. So what does this mean to us? Number one, we do need to develop a transferable set of skills and experiences that are valued in the industry. And you have to kind of you have to understand where the industry is going as well, in order to know if the demand for that set of experiences or skills is going to be persistent. Let's take the office printer job. If the printer industry is going to go down, even if you can sell the best office printers, you can make the most sales of office printers, it's not going to be very valuable in the next 20 years, for instance. Yeah. So that's the first point on the right here. The second point on the right would be that each subsequent job move that you make will affect your future options. As let's say a salesperson in an office printer company, you can perhaps move into a sales role in, let's say, a sensor company that sells to factories instead. And what that means is that because you have developed that expertise in sales as well as a B2B setting, business to business setting, this will help you gain. This will help you move into similar roles in the future. But at the same time, if you make that move into a sales role in a sensor company, you are no less closer to that accounting role in a tech company. In fact, you're further away from it, because the more years of experience you have already, the less likely they want to hire you in an entry position as an accountant in a tech company. So my point is that every job move that you make is actually very, very important. And you want to think about how you're building your resume as you make these job moves. Okay, so what I want to say here then is that career planning is quite important for us. It allows us to ensure that our skills are transferable, and it allows us to maintain our seniority as well as salary when you do your job moves. So financial security, long-term career satisfaction, probably. And if you play your cards right, you can have global mobility as well. Okay, let me do a time check. Right. Okay, so let me just go into the meat here, right? What is career planning? In a nutshell, career planning is being aware of the risks out there, as I've explained, and planning well to avoid these risks as much as possible. So I want to share career planning from 3 points of view so that you understand it holistically. First, I'll tell you what a career planner thinks. Then I'll tell you what a career planner does. And then I'll tell you what does a career plan look like. Okay, so first, a career planner thinks this: I know which industries and functions interest me. Number two, I know what skills and experiences I should develop. Number three, I set long-term goals, both career and financial. And number four, I am motivated to learn and network in my free time. Yep. So contrast this with the career drifter, who is someone who does not plan. So a career drifter would be thinking stuff like, as long as I can pay the bills now with my current job, I think I'm fine. Number two, as long as I do my work well, it should be okay, right? Number three, I'm not really sure what I want in the future yet. I haven't really made up my mind. And number four, I don't know what I want yet, so it's difficult for me to reach for opportunities. Yeah. So the moral of the story is we all want to be career planners. Of course, this is just my values. If you have different thoughts on this, I'm sure they're valid as well. Okay, going on to the second point, right? What does a career planner do? 4 things, each of them corresponding to each mindset here. Right? First, you want to research properly the full range of options available. It's very easy to look at Facebook or the news and you hear about tech companies all the time. For example, Spotify. Spotify is a huge brand, right? And as a consumer, you would think that, oh, that's a huge company, but really, if you look at the revenue of Spotify, as well as the market valuation of Spotify, it's actually quite a small company compared to a lot of the other unknown business-to-business companies out there. So this research is very important. You kind of have to move away from the consumer mindset and more into a career planner mindset. I'll share a bit more on research here in this webinar. In fact, this will be the main focus of today's webinar. And then the second thing you want to do in order to know what skills are important would be to scan potential job requirements on LinkedIn, as well as connect with people in the industry or the function that you're interested in, just to know, how should you build your career plan, what sort of skills you want to gain in the next 10 years so that you can land a particular role somewhere. Yeah. So this is actually a very important action as well. Yep. Number 3, you need to set your long-term career and financial goals. So this is just something you have to do on your own. Talk to people, read widely, do the research and the scanning, and just ask yourself what kind of role you want to play in the next 10 or 20 years, right? Do you want to be a director somewhere in a large company, or do you want to be an independent consultant working on SME companies who want to export goods? Whatever it is, right? Find a goal for yourself so that you can plan your career around that goal. Yep. And then lastly, just surround yourself with positive people. That's very important. Okay. Last perspective I want to share on career planning is, oh, by the way, sorry, just to interrupt myself. This is regarding the first point on industries and functions. Most people plan their careers to specialize on one industry and one function. So I'll go into the details later, but basically just remember that there's a two-dimensional matrix here that most people should think about. Okay, and then lastly, the third point, right? What does a career plan look like? So this is an example of a career plan in fast-moving consumer goods and marketing. So fast-moving consumer goods is an industry term for things like packaged food, fashion, cigarettes, things that you find in the supermarkets generally. And then marketing. So marketing is a function that determines not just branding. Branding is just a very small part of marketing. Marketing also determines things like the price, how you're going to set the price, how are you going to work with retailers to get your product out there. There's a whole bunch of things that I can cover later. So again, this is just a quick view of what a career plan would look like. I will share details on this later. Okay, so with that, I've covered the first point on what is career planning and why is it important. I'm sure a lot of you would understand why it's important now. So just to go into the second part first, I want to talk about the industries out there and what the implications are to my career, to your career. For industries, I will give you a disclaimer up front. I will not provide you with a full list of industries because this full list of industries is something you can easily check outside. However, what I will share with you today is a framework to think about what sort of industries may interest you. Because there's so many industries out there. How do you narrow down the ones you want to research on? That is how I will. That is a framework that I'll share with you today. Okay, so here's a framework. Of all the million industries out there, from oil and gas to home appliances to retail and fashion, you can kind of group them via 2 dimensions. Okay, the first is economic concentration. So you have industries with high economic concentration, industries with low economic concentration. And then the second dimension would be customer focus. You have industries in B2B where the company sells to another company. And then you have industries in B2C where the company sells directly to the consumer. So again, this is a scale because even like say packaged food, right? You're not going to find many packaged food companies selling directly to the consumer, but they are one step away from the consumer. They sell to the supermarket and the supermarket sells to the consumer. So there's a scale there. Packaged food is not full B2C, but it's kind of B2C. Okay. So I'm going to share with you now what the implications are for each aspect. Okay, first we have economic concentration. So this, you'll see that the map of industries here is divided into two parts, the top and the bottom. Industries in the top have high economic concentration, and industries in the bottom have low economic concentration.
Royce,
Yes.
that's a quick question.
Yes.
Let's say I'm someone who doesn't understand what economic concentration is.
Yeah, yeah,
Could
I'm
you
going to
please?
explain that.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Okay, thanks for the question. Yep, so what high economic concentration means is that um, there are only a few large companies within the industry. So only large companies can survive, basically. On the other hand, what low economic concentration means is that the whole industry, the pie of, let's say, all the revenues in the industry is shared by many, many companies. Some of them can be large, but there are also a lot of small companies out there. Okay. Um, so examples would be, let's say, oil and gas. When you think of oil and gas, you think of huge companies, right? There's Shell, there's BP, there's Total, and that's like the only three companies I know. Maybe there are maybe three or four more in shale oil and gas, but there aren't a lot. On the other hand, if you look at, let's say, I don't know, fashion, right? There's so many brands out there. Zara, H&M, Uniqlo, etc. These are the large ones. And then there are also the smaller brands which make clothes sold at select shops like Beams, stuff like that, right? So you can instinctively tell that oil and gas has high economic concentration, and you can also instinctively tell that fashion, F&B, retail, they have lower economic concentration. Yep. So just to share the implications very quickly, for high economic concentration, you would probably be able to get a stable career with internal global mobility. So a lot of these companies are huge. They have global operations. You can possibly move from one company to another company internally. Oh, sorry, one country to another country internally. Um, so that's a good thing if you are, a global Jinzai. However, one minus would be this: it's potentially slow career progression relative to low economic concentration.
All right, just to add like another point. Okay, so for those of you who don't speak Japanese as fluently as Royce does, global jinzai means a human resource who is equipped with skills that can be like used all over the world.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for catching that. Um, okay, and then for low economic concentration companies, um, yeah, essentially you have the potential to fast track your career by moving between large and small companies. There's something very interesting going on here for some of the industries, in the sense that large companies value some of the skill sets that you can get at small companies, and again, small companies really value the skill sets that you can get at some of the skill sets you can get at large companies. So if you play your cards right, you can switch from company to company and climb up faster. However, because there are so many companies in those industries, the pace of work is usually very fast. So you need to be prepared to be quite busy. Yeah. Okay. This is the first dimension. The second dimension I want to share with you is customer focus, B2B and B2C. So B2B would be business facing. So usual characteristics would be the sales cycle is longer.
Royce, could you like
Yes.
again, my apologies for interrupting you here, but regarding the high economic concentration and the low
Yes.
economic concentration, could you give a small example or just one to just give the audience a feel of what you mean? For example, in low economic concentration companies, if you look at logistics or trading or
Yep.
SaaS companies, right? You mentioned that it's a fast track career by moving between large and small companies. For example, I've seen people who are like engineers who've
Yep.
moved from SaaS and AI, who've moved in between SaaS and AI to, like a couple of other industries every 2 years or every 3 years. Whereas,
Mm-hmm.
like in companies like oil and gas or corporate banking, I've seen people change jobs every 4 years or
Mm-hmm.
5 years. So is that kind of what you mean? Like potentially slow progression, or people tend to stick to their job longer in those companies?
Um, I would say that Firstly, regarding the example that you shared in AI and SaaS, I would say that these skills happen to be in high demand in in-house roles as well. So as a programmer, you would be able to get hired in, let's say, a totally
Alert
different
from
industry.
Google Chrome. Bosch.tv.
I'm hearing something. Sorry, I think there was an error somewhere. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of a different perspective of it. That's more from a skill set perspective and a function perspective, not so much in industry. I'll definitely share this later on. There are some functions that are industry agnostic. So it doesn't really matter which industry you get into, and you can really move around different industries as much as you want. Yeah. I hope that answers your concern, Karthik. Okay, cool. Great. So on to customer focus, B2B and B2C. So as I was saying, B2B has longer sales cycles. You may have fewer learning opportunities because each time let's say you negotiate a contract, that would take a few months. Definitely, there are a lot of details involved. You have to work very closely with the production side to ensure that your whatever you're delivering is what the customer wants. But again, the iteration is quite long and usually a few months. So comparatively speaking, you wouldn't learn as fast as you would in a consumer facing role where the sales cycles tend to be shorter. Okay, and then next would be, yeah, in B2B, you need to be responsive to trends in business needs instead of consumer needs. So for business needs, these don't change very often, but when they change entirely. So for example, I can talk about controllers in factories, right? There are two types of controllers, analog controllers and digital controllers that allow you to control the equipment in a factory. So up to now, analog controllers have been the mainstream. And it's been a very stable business because all factories require controllers. You just need to sign a contract with them and you probably get to renew it for the next decade or so. It's very stable. At the same time, businesses now want to link their infrastructure digitally as well. They want to link the equipment information directly to some of the other parts of their software infrastructure. And as such, analog controllers don't cut it anymore. So there's this shift towards digital, and once that starts, there's no turning back, right? You cannot hold on to analog anymore. It's like overnight, analog becomes the value of it becomes zero. So there's that element of risk there, of needs changing quickly. And if you're in B2B, you really have to stay on top of those trends to position yourself well to catch the next wave. Yeah. So for example, what I would do is if I were an analog salesman and I foresee this trend coming, I would try to get a job in a digital controller company quickly. So I can ride that wave. And yeah, B2C. So B2C is consumer facing. It's pretty much the opposite of what I just explained for B2B. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to skip this slide. Okay. Yeah. So how to research, right? I've shared with you a framework. It's a 2x2 framework. So what you can do as a first step is number one, select the quadrant of economic concentration and customer focus that best aligns with your values. So just take a quick look backwards, right? If let's say you want to learn quickly, you want to pick a B2C. If you want to fast track your career, you want to pick low economic concentration. So then you may want to focus on this quadrant over here. So this is not a complete list, but within you, when you look at a list of industries, you can kind of instinctively pick out, okay, this sounds like it's economic concentration low and customer focus B2C. You can instinctively pick it out. It's not very difficult. So just pick those out first and focus on those first. Essentially, that's a prioritization framework that you can use. So yeah, pick out 4 to 5 that seem to fall into the quadrant. And then next, just study the global trends for each selected industry. There's actually a lot of information out there online in industry newsletters. They have blogs. And if you have access to a university alumni list, try speaking to those people as well. So things you want to consider for yourself would be, do you think this industry is going to continue to be around? how are companies and employees in this industry expected to adapt? And number three, does this industry have a strong presence in the countries that you intend to work in? Let's say, so I'm from Singapore, right? Even if I go into vehicle manufacturing, there's no way that I can use vehicle manufacturing as an industry for me to go back to Singapore, because there's no vehicle manufacturing there. Yeah. Okay, so that's it. By the way, if you want a full list of industries with some comments, you should take a look at 就職式法. 就職式法. It's a book released every year by Toyo Keizai Shimbun. Unfortunately, it's only in Japanese, but the information in it is really good. So just take a look at it. Yeah. Okay, next, very quickly, I'll share the functions out there and implications to the career. Okay, I will not be able to explain the details of this, but just to give you a gist, right? There are 4 functional areas out there in any company. How these functional areas are filled, what sort of roles go into it, may vary from industry to industry. But essentially, any job that you find out there on LinkedIn can be classified under one of these 4 functional categories. Okay, so,
Just a quick, I wouldn't call it warning, but a flag that to keep in mind. These are roles which are non-tech roles. Okay, these are like non-STEM roles.
Karthik, just clarify that part. STEM roles can also fall under these categories as well.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be under production.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So any role in the world will fall into any of these categories.
Got it.
Thanks for the clarification, Karthik. I think a lot of the attendees appreciated knowing that.
Yeah, because I mean, as someone who's seeing the slide for the first time, in the corporate under the corporate subheading, I didn't find tech roles or like engineering roles. So that's why I blindly assumed that it's this is for the non-STEM thing,
Right,
or
right.
only covers the non-STEM thing.
Yeah, I see. Yes, there can be IT system roles in corporate as well. I kind of left it out inadvertently. Yeah. But what I want to explain with this framework is that depending on, okay, two things I want to explain. Number one, once you pick a functional area, for example, procurement or production, marketing, sales, then you tend to need to stick to that functional area to build your career. So you can move around within a functional area. Let's say, under production, you can go from product design to production engineering. You can if you want to, but it's easier to do so. But it will be more difficult to jump from, let's say, plant operations under production to sales operations. It's kind of a different role altogether. And it's a bit like the example I gave at the start. Trying to move from sales into accounting. It's totally different, and you need a full different skill set. It's a bit difficult there. The second point I want to make is that even among these functional areas, there are positions which allow you high mobility, upward mobility, as well as global mobility, and there are positions which are dead ends. So I just want to point that out to you as a general guideline, just so that when you continue looking for positions, you are aware of that aspect. Again, this just a disclaimer, this does not apply to every single company or industry, but in general, it applies. Let's talk about, okay, first, sorry, let me just backtrack a bit. I realize that some of you may not be familiar with these terms, so I'll explain what they are. In any company, there's going to be a value chain that takes in input, produces value with the input, and sells that somewhere. And that basically would equal these 3 functions here, right? There's the procurement function, which buys things. It can be buying raw materials. It can be buying factories. It can be buying things like printers just to help the office run, right? But it's all procurement, and it's all important. And then there's a production function within a company, and this is where you kind of add value to the raw materials. So examples would be product design, where you kind of determine the specs of your product, as well as determine exactly what sort of raw materials are required.
All right. So, Royce, just to give
Yes.
like another example, see, since people have also seen the word capital procurement, for example, the way private equity or investment banks or hedge funds work is, they actually go out. The input itself is money, so they don't have the money themselves. They go get the money from somewhere else. Then they invest that money somewhere else, get the value out of it, and sell that value to like their customers. That's it.
Yep. Yep.
I was just giving an example so that people can see both high economic concentration examples and low economic concentration
Yeah.
examples.
Yeah. I think that's very helpful, Karthik. So actually, under capital procurement, yeah, as Karthik mentioned, there's funds, money,
Hmm.
for hedge in the context of hedge funds and private equity. Getting funds comes under procurement.
Yeah.
In the context of a manufacturer, getting funds comes under finance,
Hmm.
but buying factories comes under procurement,
Yeah.
capital procurement. Yeah. So it really just depends on what industry it is. But yes, that's a good point. Um, okay, so that's production, which is simple to understand, and then there's marketing and sales. So under marketing and sales, usually have roles like the brand or product manager, which has the PL responsibility. He's the guy in charge of expanding the revenue. And then there would be people on sales operations, which would manage the sales teams working on the ground. So this would be more of a cost-cutting role. How much can you sell with as little salespeople as possible, as few salespeople as possible? So that is what the sales operation does. And then it'll be things like channel management, ads and promotions. Yeah, I can go into the details later if we have time. So going back to my point about how some of these roles are good for your mobility and some of these are dead end. A simple way to understand this is that these roles over here on the bottom, right? Um, in quite a few cases in industries, they tend to be dead end roles. So you don't want to go into them at all, as much as you can help. So this would be plant operator, like people on the production line. This would be people on the call center and answering phone calls from like customers. With people, uh, basically planning the operations for the warehouse. Um, so in general, these are low value roles and you want to avoid them. However, there are some companies which actually do value these people as well, and they provide you a clear promotion uh, kind of timeline. But at the same time, even if they do promise you that, I personally, I will not want to count on that. The only exception to this would be maybe the sales representative and sales engineer roles here for high value B2B industries. So this is where for B2B industries, sales representatives actually bringing a lot of value. Each contract that they make can be a few million USD. Even the smallest contracts would probably be at least 100,000 USD. So these people bring in the value, and they are usually able to understand the customer's needs very well because they work very closely with the customer. So if you are in B2B, it's okay to be a sales and representative, sales engineer, because the path to promotion is a lot clearer there. So these tend to be, again, dead end roles. So just be careful when you see openings like these. And then just to point out one more reflection. The people with, actually two more reflections. The people with the most influence within an organization are usually in the product or brand manager role or the product design role. So these are the people who get a lot of visibility within the organization. And if they do well, they get promoted very quickly. So let's say if you're in marketing and sales and you end up, you start off with sales operations, try to angle for a role in brand or product manager, because that will give you the upward mobility as well as global mobility later on. So I've covered the right side of the screen, procurement, production, marketing, and sales. I'd just like to cover very briefly the left side, so you get an idea of it as well. So for corporate roles, as I mentioned a bit earlier, these can be industry agnostic. What that means is that if you build your functional specialty in, let's say, accounting, you can do accounting for a tech company, and then you can move on to a pharma company. You can move on to a manufacturer later. It's easier to make that move because people really value that accounting specialty, and accounting doesn't really differ from industry to industry generally. Same for legal, same for risk control, I suppose. General affairs is something you want to avoid, by the way. This is like the ad hoc stuff that comes in, like arranging meetings, ensuring that stakeholders and shareholders are happy. It's not really a high value role. So try to avoid general affairs in most cases. Right? There's communications as well, which would be like, okay, how should we communicate our CSR activities? How can we ensure that people have a good impression of our corporate brand? So that's communications. And then you have the very high value 3 roles here, which is finance, human resources, and planning and analytics. So finance would, in a usual company, finance would basically encompass 2 things. Number 1, you control the entire budgeting process for the full value chain. So you'll be the guy in charge of saying, okay, procurement, you promised at the start of this year that you can reduce cost by 5%, but it's September and you've only managed to reduce it by 3%. Can you explain why? And it's so you're kind of in that management role from a numbers perspective. So that's the budget planning process, which is part of finance. The other part of finance would be the loans, getting loans and getting equity from the markets. So you will need to present an equity story to the investors out there, be it equity investors or debt investors, so that they will be comfortable providing you with money that you can later use to invest in any of these 3 functions: procurement, production, marketing, sales. So it is a very powerful role. If you can get a role in finance, that's good. Human resources, depending on the company, some human resources people are powerful. Other companies, human resources somewhat like general affairs. So you have to look out for that difference. If you go into human resources, make sure you go into a company that values its human resources team and sees strategic value in it. And then finally, there's planning and analytics. This planning and analytics is a bit similar to the budgeting process that I mentioned earlier in finance. Some companies actually put the 2 functions together in that sense. But planning analytics is very important. Usually these people are in charge of creating the long-term strategy for the company as well. So that's always a good thing. Okay, we don't have much time left, so I need to go on. I'm going to skip this slide, no time. Okay, last. This is the meat, right? How to become a career planner. Just to do a recap, you need to research the options, then you scan what skill sets and job requirements there are, reflect what you want, and then surround yourself with positive people. So concretely, this is what you need to do, right? You need to fill in a career plan template that looks like this. So on the x-axis, you have a few steps, right? From XX years to XX years, I want to do this first job, this first position. And then after that, I'll move into this different type of position. And then finally, I'll want this sort of position on the top right. So that's how you want to read this chart on the x-axis. On the y-axis, there are 2 things. First, sort of position you want, right? So you need to determine the industry, the function, as well as the sub-function, if possible. And then you also may want to indicate the geography, just so that you have an understanding of where you will be. And then, so that's the position part. And then after that, skills and experiences you can develop. So this would basically be a summary of the skills and experience that you'll develop in that position. Okay, so when you want to plan your career, then you need to first determine the ideal position you want in the long term. And this doesn't have to be too specific. You can have a few options out there. And then the second thing would be to determine by scanning and by networking with alumni. You want to determine what skills and experiences are required for you to get the ideal position on the top right. And then lastly, you need to fill in the blanks here, right? For each of the skills and experiences required, what sort of positions you need to experience in order to gain those skills and experiences. Yeah, okay, so I'll just give you an example so it's easier. So this is the example I shared a bit earlier. This is a career planner who wants to focus in the FMCG, fast-moving goods industry, and marketing function. So in the first 3 years, he says, okay, he or she says, first I want to get a job as a marketer at a large FMCG company in Japan, and then I want to learn these things. And then after that, my next move will be to do an MBA first, and then hopefully I will land a job in a consulting firm in Japan. And then I want to learn these things. Do note that in a consulting firm, this person intends to learn about different functions other than marketing as well, and this is quite important for reasons I'll share later. So after the consulting firm, he or she says, okay, after that, I think I would want to go back into a product manager role, first in Japan, in a large company. So this is what I will learn. I will learn to be a leader. And then after that, I want to move back to Europe where my home is. And I want to be head of marketing and sales at a medium-sized FMCG. So this is a very structured plan in the sense that he or she knows exactly what he wants to do at the end. He or she knows what skills he or she would need. And finally, the career planner would has in mind very specific positions that he or she wants to go for. So that's a good thing. Obviously, you don't need to be very specific. And in fact, this career plan itself is not very specific if you look at the details. It says FMCG, but it doesn't say, is it tobacco, is it fashion, is it packaged food? This guy leaves it open, right? And then he also has a kind of two options here at the end. He can be at a medium-sized company in a higher role, or he can be in a director role at a large FMCG company. So my point is that a career plan doesn't have to be too specific. You can definitely adjust it as you go on, depending on the realities of what positions you're able to land. Yeah. Okay. Just very quick point here that, again, it's very difficult to change tracks halfway. When you want to plan your career moves and fill in the template earlier, you need to make sure that they're realistic. So realistic career moves would be where you move within the same company into a more senior role in the same function, and also you can move into a similar role in a different company. So that's easy. On the other hand, what would be very difficult to do would be to totally change your industry and function at once, right? Which will be here in the bottom right. So you want to try to plan your career realistically by sticking to the sort of movements in the top left instead of the bottom right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then so lastly, I just want to go through some of the cheat codes that I have observed. So as a student, in order to get a more robust career plan and in order to build a better career, it's always good to do targeted internships and OB visits early. So I say targeted because this would be in industries that interest you. You would have identified this with the framework that I told you about earlier. Number two, you need to study your global trends in the industries and functions. And number three, this is very important. I cannot stress how important this is. You need to work on your Japanese if you're going to find your first job in Japan. Okay, and then as a working adult, yeah, there are 4 things you need to do. You need to understand your earning potential by checking salary guides. I will show an example of this later. And then number 2, learn how to read the profit loss statement, the balance sheet, as well as the cash flow statements as a business professional. So this is kind of accounting 101, right? Make sure you know how that works. Number 3, consider joining consulting or doing an MBA because this will give you a skill boost in terms of how efficiently you can work and how well you can understand the people you're working with. I cannot stress how important this is. So if you ever have the chance to join a consulting company or do an MBA, please go for it. And then the second merit of this would be the reset. So let's say you start as a salesperson in a printing company and you realize, oh shit, printing is not going to work. At the same time, I want to change industry and change function, but it's difficult. So when you're at a point in time, you can do an MBA or consulting and you can kind of reset your experience because talent acquisition teams who hire, they're more interested in your experiences during the consulting period or during your MBA, not so much in what you did before. So this is a good opportunity to reset. That said, you can't do the reset many times. I think you can probably do it like once in your career lifetime. So do plan very carefully where you want that reset to come in. Okay, and then lastly, always be in touch with recruiters, just so you understand what the job market is like and what positions are out there. Okay, just to share very quickly 2 points. Number one, most Japanese university students, they start the job hunting process 2 years before they graduate. So yeah, just a call to you guys out there. If you're within 2 years of graduation, you really should start thinking about planning your career and going for the internships they require. Okay, and then this is the salary guide that I mentioned earlier. So it's in Japanese, unfortunately. I hope you can read Japanese well enough. But basically, some of the recruiting companies, they release this sort of guide that tell you, based on the type of position, what kind of salary you can expect to get. So it shows you the range, right? If you're a top earner in that category, you get like 700 man yen, 700 man yen a year. If you are, let's
That's
say,
7 million yen per
7
annum.
million yen, yeah. And then if you are, let's say, an entry level person, you get 4 million a year. Yeah. So just Google this. It'll come out and take a look at it. Cool. So I would like to then move on to the questions and answers section. I understand that we only have 4 minutes if we go by schedule. Karthik, would it be okay if we extend this by about 20 minutes so that we end at 12:20?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay, okay. And then at the same time, if there's some of you who really have to go at 12, I will open a post on the Facebook group, on the MSA Facebook group a bit later, and you can post your questions there on the MSA Facebook group.
And another quick, I wouldn't call it again a red flag, but it's more like Chuijiko kind of a thing, like a warning kind of a thing. So this PowerPoint was made by Royce. So please do not take screenshots and share, you know, share everything at free will. Kindly seek Royce's permission before you share it. All right, because the content belongs to Royce.
Yep. Thanks for pointing that out, Karthik. I appreciate it.
Because I'm pretty sure Royce put in like a lot of effort in doing all the research and creating all these amazing slides. Just be careful when you're sharing it. All right.
Yep. Let me know if you want to share it.
Yeah, I think Royce is cool with sharing sharing the presentation with you. Just talk to him, like send him a message and take his permission. All right. With that being said, I would like to move on to the Q&A session. I see a lot of interesting questions popping up. Um, all right. So I'm gonna pick the one with the most votes. Okay, let's start with the complicated one. How can you tell if a company values their human resources?
Actually, Karthik, let's do this. So there are 3 questions in the Q&A box.
Mhm.
Let's answer them first, and then I would like to really, hear from the floor in
All right.
an audio way. So
All right.
yeah. Okay. So back to the question. How can you tell if a company values their human resources? This is a very tough question, and I have no clear answer for this. But
No,
what
that's
I can
fine.
what I can do is I can take you through the thought process, right?
Mhm.
Let's say you're interviewing with a company for an HR role. Um, you would want to talk to other people who have held that HR role for some time in the company, at least 5 years. And ideally, this person has also had experience in HR in other companies as well. If he or she has had experience in a professional HR consulting firm, that's the best. So you want to find someone like that in the company. You can probably ask to meet that sort of profile, and then they will tell you if they will let you meet him or her or not, right? So talk to them and then ask them this question. In your opinion, how can the HR function in that company play a more strategic role? And the key word here is strategic role, right? Because that if it's strategic, then it means that the HR people have are allowed to sit at this decision-making table, and they can actually provide insight into things like the compensation scheme, into the incentive structures, and that's actually quite important for a company. On the other hand, there are also companies that don't allow the HR to do that. Basically, HR is just an afterthought. So ask about the strategic role of HR. A second indication would be if they have a chief of human resources. If some companies have that, and if they have chief of human resources, then there's a higher possibility that HR is a strategic role. If not, then it's going to be an afterthought. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Mhm.
Okay,
Um,
then,
all right, the next one
yes.
is, what are the job prospects other than academia or research in Japan for PhDs in social sciences humanities fields? I've heard that companies in Japan don't prefer hiring PhDs for new grads
Mm,
or other company positions. How true is this, and what should be our strategy? Oh,
sure.
that's an interesting question. Royce, would you like
Okay.
to take that?
Yes.
Go for it.
Frankly, I think I don't think I'm the best person to respond to this, because I don't know a lot of PhDs in social sciences, humanities, in the workforce in Japan.
All right. So can I answer
Um,
this question?
yes.
So it depends on what kind of humanities or social sciences you're pursuing. For example, um, this is again off the top of my head. I know someone who has been pursuing, who's been doing his PhD in gender, in impact investing regarding gender equality and issues being faced by female entrepreneurs in Japan and in Southeast Asia. So that person right now has a good job prospect in, like, investment banking, because that person did not, just pu- pursue it from a social science perspective. He also added a statistics angle to that. So he built some regression models. He also built some correlation models. He built some, like, mathematical models that try to explain why women are facing those issues in that respective field. So if you have like a humanities, even though you have like a humanities background, if you have like a statistics angle to that, I think you'll still be able to make it. That's one. And two, companies like Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, etc., they always prefer, like, hiring candidates with diverse backgrounds, because you never know what's going to happen in investing, right? You have to understand what kind of trend is going to pick up in the next couple of months or in the next couple of years. So for that, they want people who can do research on like human behavior or problems that are being faced in different, like, countries or socioeconomic stratas, etc. If I remember correctly, I think during my job hunting days, when I was looking at different industries, I went to this one info session at Morgan Stanley, and the head of fixed income derivatives division was a person who had a PhD in English literature. um, I hope that answers your question. So there are people who are getting hired. It's like, it's not like it's not happening.
Yeah, I would second Kotick's point on statistics. Have a strong statistics background, and also um, I think the foreign companies tend to be more open to these sort of profiles that are out of the ordinary. So the best bet would be to try with the foreign companies.
You can try applying to this company called Bloomberg, because they are actually pretty interested in taking candidates from, like, social sciences and humanities with
Mm-hmm.
with some critical thinking skills.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And you can also apply in the consulting. Consulting companies do take PhD um, candidates, even in non-science fields. Okay, cool. So I think that answers the question. Shall we go on to? It seems like there are more and more open questions coming up on text.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. You know what? Let's just do this by text then.
Okay.
Um, so
Or
I
how
will
about this?
take the.
Okay. So, just another pointer to the audience. If you're comfortable with, raising your hand and voicing your opinion, please do it through voice. That'll, like not make the webinar so dry. We can probably add a little more live, we can add a live feel to it. All right. But if you're comfortable texting, go with text.
Cool. So Kartik, could you keep an eye on the
Yeah.
participant list for
Yeah.
hands
I'll
up,
do
and
that.
then I'll just go through the list of text questions.
All right. I'll do that. Like if someone raises their hand, I'll give them the access to,
Yeah.
like talk.
Okay, cool. That works very well. Great. So let's go on to the next question on text. What is your experience working? What is your experience in a consulting firm like? And do you know about job prospects and gender diversity? Okay. First question. I want to keep it as short as possible. In a consulting firm, you get to work on a project by project basis, and each project is about 1 to 3 months. And this is the largest difference from a regular position. Because it's a project basis, you get to work in very short cycles with different stakeholders, different industries, and different functions. So if I were to share a couple of reflections about this style of working, number one, it allows you to train your learning agility in understanding issues from a senior management perspective. Once every 2 to 3 months, you kind of have to brush up on a new industry and a function and maybe sub-function as well. And that really helps you understand from a broad perspective what investors and basically senior management is concerned about. So that's the first reflection. The second reflection is that it really teaches you to know how to communicate with different types of people and build their trust. So every time you change a project, the clients that you work with change, the team you work with changes as well. And there's a whole new field of relationships that you need to build from scratch, right? You need to understand what sort of communication style makes your manager happy, what sort of output makes your team happy. You need to understand what sort of presentation would make your client happy. So there's a lot of opportunity for exploring and therefore growing. So in a nutshell, I think being a consulting firm allows you to grow a lot in terms of breadth of your knowledge as well as people relations. Okay, so that's the first question. Yeah.
Second part of the question, I think I did not understand it. I just want to clarify. Um, is wait, there are two things that I got from this. Are you asking if there are any jobs available because the company is promoting gender diversity, or do you mean does the company have like a gender diversity promotion division, or where you can get a job to start some promoting gender diversity projects?
So let me answer both.
Okay.
If it's positions in gender diversity, I don't think there are many such positions out there. I do know of them. They do exist, but only with the large companies with the resources to really put one employee just on that gender diversity. That having said that, right? I think going on to the second point that Kartik mentioned, there are companies which want to encourage gender diversity in general. A lot of them, and by joining them as an HR person, you may get involved on some of these projects on a project basis. So it won't be a full-time job. You would maybe do it 20% of the time, but you can get involved in that. I hope that answers the question.
All right, let's
Okay,
go to
cool.
the next one.
Next one. So yeah, global mobility, blah. So we have a question on how can our knowledge or skill be applicable or relatable to global needs? So this is a very broad question. And I think there are two ways of looking at this, right? If you plan to start your career in Japan and then move overseas later, then that's the first case. In that case, you just really have to do what I mentioned earlier, build your specialty in an industry and in function, and try to move based on that specialty to another country. So for marketing, because marketing faces the consumer market directly, it may be a bit more difficult to move from, let's say, Japan marketing into France marketing, because the market will be very different, and you wouldn't know much about the French market. However, if your function tends to be is in, let's say, procurement or production, it will be easier to make that move, because these functions are not as restricted by the market characteristics.
Or to like put that in a better way, split your skill set into hard skills and soft skills. Okay, so hard skills are skills like programming, procurement, accounting, etc. So hard skills are pretty much the same in every industry and in every country. All right. Soft skills are like sales, marketing, able to use keigo in Japanese. These are like tailored to that market. So hard skills can be used in any market. So keep developing those hard skills, depending on in which direction you want to go in your career, and depending on the country, you have to pick up you have to pick up the respective soft skills.
That can be a way of thinking about it, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah. But if you do decide to build your function specialty in marketing, then there are hard skills in marketing as well. Just to
Yeah,
be clear.
yeah,
So yeah, it's just a bit more difficult to move because you don't have the consumer insights in another country.
got it.
And so that's the first that's the first case, right? Where you start your career in Japan and then you
Mhm.
move later on. If you're trying to move from a Japanese university into a foreign company outside of Japan, then I think it tends to be more straightforward. Yeah, you can just make the application directly.
I see somebody raising their hands.
Oh, cool.
Just for a change of air, can I ask them to, can I give them the permission to talk?
Sure, sure. Let's go with that.
All right, I think I see Sandeep Nayak. I'm gonna allow him to talk for a few seconds now. Um, Hello, Sandeep. I see you raise your hand. Could you unmute yourself and talk?
Yeah, hi Karthik. Thank you for such a wonderful um, opportunity, and Royce for such a nice presentation in your time. Um, Actually, I had a very, I would rather say, a personal doubt. I saw your career as you started as a finance and then you moved to sales and marketing, that too in two different industries,
Mhm.
which I would say that uh, was in the lower right of the matrix you showed me. So I
Yeah.
wasn't. Am I?
Yeah, I understand. So that just to answer in a nutshell,
Yes.
when you move into consulting, what you do before doesn't really matter as much. So you
Ah.
can switch around. So for me, what I decided for myself is I want to focus on marketing and sales as a function, and so I made that specialization within McKinsey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I also have a similar desire because I
Mhm.
had worked in Tata Motors, but then I came as a research scholar
Mhm.
here, and now I wanted to do something like have more broad perspectives.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's why this question popped up. That how was that?
Yeah, yeah, I see. In that sense, I would definitely encourage you to try for consulting, especially a management consultant firm. And
Okay.
if you want to go into a non-consulting role,
Mm-hmm.
try for product design under the production function.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And my Japanese is not keigo level. I
Mm-hmm.
can do normal kaiwa.
Yeah,
So how do you think will it affect my if and I want to start my job from Japan.
yeah,
So how do you think it would affect, or how do I have to project myself so that I have a at least a balancing hand here?
yeah. I think for positions that require uh, industry-specific skills, like I
Mhm.
suppose you've had experience from Tata that you can talk about.
Yes, yes.
If it's that sort of position, they will be willing to take people with N2.
Okay.
So try to get N2, and you don't need to be perfect at Kaggle or whatever. Just get the N2 as much as possible, and you will be able to work with the teams on product research and product design. I do know a few companies in Japan which are taking foreigners with that profile. So you don't need to worry too much about it. Just try to get the N2 and actively apply to these companies.
Okay, thank
Uh,
you so much. Yes.
Royce, I think this would be a good place
Yep.
to like stop this. Or Sandeep, do you have any other questions?
No, no, no. Thank you so much.
Okay.
No
Yep.
worries.
Thanks for the time,
Thanks a lot
Karthik.
for putting up your hand.
Cool. I'll just quickly run through the other comments on text.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay? Tips on networking during Corona. I don't really have an answer for that. I'm sorry. Karthik,
Okay,
what
can
do
I
you
answer
say?
that? All right. So, try to attend as many webinars as possible. I know, there's Zoom fatigue, right? You get tired of looking at the Zoom screen, but it still works. So, if you attend a webinar, you might get to see all the different kinds of people that are attending the webinar slash hosting the webinar. Then, what you can do is you can follow up with them on LinkedIn or Twitter or any of the social media accounts that they're comfortably, like disclosing at the event. Talk to them, and then you can probably get a job, because I've seen a few people get some jobs at companies like Rakuten even during COVID, and they attended these webinars and some hackathons or events that were being hosted by the company. That's it.
Mhm. Yep. Okay, so let's go to the next question. When you talk about internships, do you mean one day, few weeks internships, or do you mean long-term ones? Okay, that's a good question. Thank you for that question. I mean both. So it really depends on how you want to view your own internship experience, right? If you want to shuffle through as many companies as possible just to know what's out there, then you do the short-term one. However, if you find one really good company, you like the people there, and you want to build skills that you can boast about during your interview, then you do a long-term internship. I hope that answers your question. Yep. Okay, cool. I think that's great. Next question. Is it realistic to expect companies to hire you a full year before you graduate? Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, a full year. Okay, with the current schedule, the offers come about 9 months to 12 months before the graduation date. So what I mean by getting hired would be by getting the offer. So you want to get that offer 9 to 12 months before you graduate, essentially. Okay, next question. Is it possible to do an internship at a consulting company? With the smaller consulting companies, it's possible. I do know of people who have done internships at Frost and Sullivan.
Mhm.
Uh, Unfortunately, I don't have other examples than that. So you would definitely need to do some research on your own.
It
Karthik,
also
do you happen to
depends
know?
on it also depends on the kind of consulting company or the kind of
Yeah.
internship that you're looking at. So if you just write to them and asking them about and ask them about, like, hey, I'm planning to, like, understand what consulting is. Can you give me an internship? The chances of you getting an internship is kind of low, are kind of low. But if you write something more specific, like, oh, hey, I want to understand the pharmaceutical industry, or I want to understand finance or something like that, consumer finance and stuff like that. If you add like another layer of specificity to that, then you'll probably have a better chance of landing your internship at at a consulting firm.
Yeah. So basically, you would definitely need to approach them on your own because I don't think consulting firms tend to search actively for interns. Just beware that you need to produce value because, frankly speaking, from an employer's point of view, interns can be troublesome because you need to teach them what to do and stuff like that. So make sure that your value proposition to them is clear. Make sure that you can do stuff. Prove to them you can do stuff in the first few weeks, and they want to keep you for longer.
Wait, Royce, I see another participant's
Great.
hand go up, so I'm gonna ask that
Sure.
person to talk. All right.
Sure.
And we can get back to the text-based questions, like in a couple of
Yep.
minutes.
Yep.
So let's go. Samrid, I see your hand. I'm gonna allow you to talk. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
very clear.
Okay, firstly, thank you guys for organizing this and giving such a nice strategic perspective. Um, I had one question, but I want to I'll come to my primary question afterwards. You just mentioned that um, as an employer, you want interns to do stuff
Yep.
at consulting. So, like, what kind of stuff or what kind of value proposition should interns have when going for consulting, yeah, when going for consulting?
Sure.
That's my first question. And yeah, I'll let you answer that, and then maybe we can go to the second question if that's okay.
Okay. Karthik, I think you may be better positioned to answer the first question since you did something similar. Could you take this one?
Okay. In my case, I was actually scouted by the consulting firm. I got lucky in that case because I put myself out there. Okay, so for those of you who don't know my career path, well, okay, right now I work at a venture capital fund. I'm trying to help like tech startups and both in and outside of Japan grow their business and help them get funding and help them with all the hiring and all of that stuff. But prior to that, when I was a student, I was always, like trying to write blogs, get involved in hackathons. I always put myself out there so that someone from some field or some industry would read it, and even if one person read it, that would make all the difference, right? So, Samrit, to answer your question, so just keep doing whatever you're doing. I see your articles on LinkedIn from time to time. Someone will find it and give you an opportunity. That's what happened to me. So I was organizing TED Talks. I was writing my insights. So it's not just like a market research. You should also add like you do the general market research plus your perspective. So that way you can probably like add more value to the consulting firm.
Yep. Yeah. Just to add on to that, Karthik, I think that makes a lot of sense. Market research, especially for other countries, would be where you can promise value. So you can say, I know my home country very well. If there are things there you need me to look at, then I can definitely do that.
Royce, we
Yes.
lost your video. Did you turn it off or?
Oh, that's strange. Okay, I think it's on again.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I was saying, yeah, try to position yourself in that sense. You can do market research on other geographies, and at the same time, I think somebody, if you already have a blog that you're updating regularly, continue to do that, because that will let them see how you're able to summarize implications from market trends and stuff like that. So they are looking out for interns who can do that as well. So you'll probably be able to expect that sort of work at any consulting company that you do an internship with. I hope that answers your first question.
Yeah, this actually answers my second question. My
Okay.
primary question was, even I'm looking into consulting, and my goal would be to get into McKinsey, but I wanted to know more about how, um, is it better to move into consulting or companies like McKinsey mid-career, or is it better to come in, like, get in as a fresh graduate?
Okay. Sorry, may I ask your background? Are you an undergrad student in
Yes,
Japan?
I'm an undergraduate student. I'm in my third year doing mechanical engineering at
Okay.
Waseda.
And you
But
speak
the most of
Japanese?
my experience, yes, I do.
Okay.
But
Okay.
most of my experience is in like business development side.
Ah, okay. So you're doing internships as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's cool. I recommend that you try to get into McKinsey as a fresh graduate. Um, but if you fail in the first time, you can always try again as a mid-career. So that was what I did. I tried when I was a fresh graduate. I made it to the final interview. I failed. But 3 years later, I did the same thing and I got it. So it really depends. So the priority is to get in as a fresh graduate because I think the
Mm-hmm.
opportunities there are large. If you
Right.
don't get that, if you fail and that's a reality, it's okay. Like 3 years later, you can try again.
Yeah.
Samrit, I think we don't have a lot of time. We have to move on to other questions,
No,
but
I'm done. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure.
thanks for your
Thank you.
question, though. Thanks a lot for your question.
Okay, I think we have just two other questions, and we'll take these two questions and close the webinar if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we
Okay.
have three, but let's take these
Three.
three and close the webinar.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So from Rodrigo, are you still here? Okay. Cool. Rodrigo was saying, what would be the best approach to find and land your job? Approaching directly or working with an agent recruiter? Okay. If by the way, Rodrigo, could you let me know if you are if you have had working experience?
Is Rodrigo in the webinar? Yes, he is.
Let me allow you to talk.
Hello, hello. Do you hear me?
Hi. Yep, very
Hello.
well.
Thank you for the presentation. Yes, and I have working experience. Yes,
Yep.
I'm working actually now
Oh,
currently.
okay, my bad. Yeah.
No, don't worry, don't worry.
Yes. So in that case, I think working with a recruiter would help. Again, this really depends on where you are in your career. If you are still in the first few years, beware that some recruiters may not want to work with you actively because the incentives they have on the end are low. So basically, how recruiters are paid is it's a percentage of your annual salary that you get in your next job.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. So there's a plus and minus, right? If you work with a recruiter, you can get more information on opportunities out there, but at the same time, you may not get paid as much because the companies would take into account the recruiter share of the profit. Yeah.
I see.
On the other hand, the reverse applies, right? If you apply your own, you may not get through the front door as easily, but when they do pick up your resume, and you can get through the hiring process well, then you can hope to negotiate for a higher salary than you would have had if you had worked through a recruiter.
Perfect.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks a lot for the answer.
No worries. Cool. Okay, thank you, Rodrigo.
So there's another question that says, kind of personal, but I hope it might help others too. I graduated from corporate finance in my country, but I felt like I was out of place, started another degree from scratch, Japanese studies. Now I'm 26 with 2 undergrad and a master's in advanced progress, but no job experience at all. All I have are relatively high Japanese skills and academic background, but no professional one. How do I approach my first job hunting? Is there anything I should do differently?
Okay, cool. This is a complicated question. So there's a standard path of job hunting if you want to go to a Japanese company, a company in Japan, sorry. And I think there's the backdoor path of job hunting where you do lots of backdoor internships and try to get connections to land a role. I think if your Japanese skills are high, you should definitely try the standard path along with the rest of the Japanese students, because similar to the rest of the Japanese students, you will not have they don't have professional experience. But if you can really shine there with your performance and with the fact that you were able to pick up another language in a foreign country quickly, then chances are high that you can get a good role. Yeah. Okay. I guess that answers your question.
All right. So the last question is from Philip for a consultant who wants to break into PE, private equity. Do you think the industry of the project or the project matter so much? I mean, mostly it'll be business due diligence or PMA, but are they weighted equally?
Wait, Philip. I know Philip. Come on. shall we have Philip talk?
Everybody knows Philip.
Yeah. Let's have Philip talk. Yeah. Okay. But hi, Philip.
Hi, could you hear my voice?
Yeah. I hear your voice.
Yeah. So
Welcome back to Japan.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. With regards to your question, is it easy for a consultant to break into PE? Yeah. Not as easy as investment banking, but at least you have a chance, because the only people that get hired in PE, especially at a low level and entry level and maybe within 10 years, would be people from investment banks or consulting.
Definitely, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, I mean, like people are talking about like, what matters from consulting to PE is like either due diligence or post-merger acquisition. I mean, post-merger, integration.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, business due diligence are just like an activity of like what we are doing, right? I mean, like it could be healthcare, it could be like consumer goods, it could be like chemical industry or whatever. So I mean, like based on that one, I mean, like if we consider that PE, well, I guess they are less and less specified by now. But do you think like for consultants who want to break into PE, do we have to like try to choose the type of like due diligence or like post-merger? So
Yes. Try to choose business due diligences as many as possible, even though they can be quite exhausting.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, post merger integration is not as relevant. I mean, it's good to have done maybe two or three, but because these tend to be quite long projects, right? You don't want to do more than 2 to 3. Instead, you want to focus on increasing the number of due diligences that you've
Mm,
run. Yeah.
I
Um,
see.
yeah, and if you're able to get some sort of project leadership experience with business due diligence, that would be the best.
Yeah.
So I do know, like,
Um,
there are quite a few roles looking for ex-consultants, and they're always looking for project management experience. So yeah.
okay. So I guess we are running out of time.
Yes.
May I reach you in person later on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Philip.
Thanks.
Kartik, back to you, I guess.
Oh, so all right. So people, I think that brings us to the end of the webinar. Thanks a lot, Royce, for your time. Thanks a lot for taking 1.5 hours out of your weekend, or maybe 2 hours, including, like the prep time, or 3 hours, including the prep time to, like create a presentation. If you
Yeah.
keep backtracking and recursing, I think we can keep adding more hours to that. Well, if you were a consultant, you would have billed us for it, but you didn't bill us for it. So as a MEXT scholar, thanks a lot for doing that favor.
Yeah.
Um, what else? And all the audience, thanks again for joining us. We had some amazing questions. I hope we were able to answer. We did try to answer as many as we can. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to like MSA, Royce, or me, or Austin, or any of the senpais that you feel like can guide you to your like ideal career path that you think is ideal for you right now. And after the webinar, I think we're going to send you a quick questionnaire to answer that, so that we can help you in a better way for from the next webinar, so that we can improve our content, so that we can also improve our our delivery style, everything. All right. I guess that'll be all. It'll be a good place to like stop the webinar here. And what do I do? Live long and prosper, or
Yeah.
to infinity and beyond. I want to end with a quote, but I can't think of any.
Yeah.
Royce, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, in terms of closing remarks, yeah, I hope this has been an eye-opening webinar for everyone in the audience. If I were a student, I would have appreciated this sort of information, 5 years ago before I started planning my first job. So yeah, all the best for job hunting, whether you're a student or you're looking for a second job. Yeah.
And all right then. So we'll be closing the webinar right away. Thanks everyone for joining. If you'd like to like have a copy of this recording, I think we'll be doing it in a couple of weeks, because we have to like edit, add some subtitles if we can. And we'll keep that. We'll start processing that as soon as we can. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording here.